Let's talk to one company which is now going to enter the secondary market from Monday, and the IPO has just opened today. We're talking about Travel Food Services. Joining us in the studio, we have Varun Kapur, CEO and MD, and Vikas Kapur, CFO at TFS. Welcome to the show, gentlemen, and always a pleasure to speak to you at NDTV Profit. When we talk about TFS, we're talking about a proxy to the Indian aviation growth story as one. And two, I think TFS has not been a household name because people didn't really know about what a TFS does. Right. But now, just on the verge of becoming a household name with retailers coming in and participating in the IPO. A quick one in terms of the initial response that you've got from the anchors. And secondly, a quick answer to what does the company do for the benefit of the viewers? Right.
No, I'd love to know. Thank you for having us on the show at NDTV Profit. It's our pleasure to be here. So yes, no doubt, a big step for us, going for a listing. We've been actually as a business for the last 16 years. But yes, going for the public markets is a big step for us as a business. So TFS, what we do very simply is we operate in the aviation sector. So we have two areas, travel QSR, which are your restaurants and airports, and lounges. These are two key areas that we operate in as a business. Our business has grown quite well since we've been there, even the last few years. And we're in an industry, no doubt, that is seeing a lot of growth. And I think part of this has been, some of the levels, both of these sectors with the passenger growths that you're seeing in India and expected over the next 10 years as well. And in terms of the way, we spoke about, you asking Hiral, and if you look at I think the faith that we hope that investors have in it. We had our anchor book close, we rightfully asked on Friday. We had some great names join us, part of that journey, which we are embarking on. Some of the leading sovereign funds globally, including leading FIs and some of the best and top mutual fund houses in India. So I think we, as a business, at the start of this journey, are very excited to go down it, no doubt.
Right. Taking into consideration now in terms of the way business is, the kind of names that have come in as well, what is the vision that you have in terms of TFS? Because growth has been good. The kind of, from financial perspective as well, if you see from FY23 to now, is that something that you will be able to maintain from here on? Or how is the trajectory looking like?
So in terms of growth, we have seen the last 2 years, coming out, even out of COVID during a challenging period. No doubt the aviation industry has truly, even before that, and now more so, embarked on real growth. See actually consumers, the way passenger growth is very strong. So our numbers, as you'd seen, been around last 2 years, approximately a bit over 25% growth in terms of revenue. And just probably while, talking a bit about our numbers, but just maybe the industry as a whole, looking at that, we see the growth over the next 10 years of passenger growth as an underlying element expected to be about 9 to 10% over the next few years. Coupled with that, the airport travel, QSR and lounge industry particularly is expected to go about 20%, just the industry itself. And that's the opportunity ahead of us, aside from obviously gaining market share in those areas which we would focus on business. I think the industry itself over the next 10 years is expected to have a 20% CAGR. So I think we're in very fast-growing industry and in a superb country, as we all believe very aggressively here, that it's the right place to be in, no doubt. So I think all of that coming together surely puts us, hopefully, a great runway ahead.
In a sweet spot, probably.
A sweet spot, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said 20% growth in the industry is the CAGR that you're seeing, right? Just want to get a sense, there's this, entire new debate that has come up that now what banks are doing is they're trying to, remove the middleman when it comes to lounge services, right? And they're directly partnering with the lounges itself. So a middleman is completely eliminated going forward, maybe, after a given point of time. Just want to get a sense as to whether you've actually seen that happening in your business. And if yes, how do you think that will aid your overall top line as well as, going ahead, your profitability as well?
Yeah. So maybe talking a bit, and Vikas can as well jump in terms of numbers as well. And, where we've seen what's happened very much in our industry is, we work with multiple partners, the lounge business particularly, I think, which you're referring to. While we have the travel QSR, we run restaurants and airports. On the lounge side, we work with multiple different lounge access partners. These could be airlines, these could be credit cards, card networks, banks as well, and other lounge access programs that are there in the market. So a wide variety of partners we tie up for the consumers coming to our lounges. And what we see is that we ultimately are the players who build the lounges. We operate these lounges, we manage it, we construct that entire piece is done by us as a team. So the consumers come to us through these various different partners and they avail the lounge services. And we see that being those tie-ups being long-term, many cases they're actually going direct and tying up with us directly, many of the banks and credit card networks as well. And only that, what we see is consumers who come to lounges. At the same time, we have the offering of the travel QSR as well. So able to actually cater to consumers depending on time of day. You want to access the lounge, we have that offering, constantly upgrading. You have spas, you have other value-added services, part of that experience. Hopefully, your viewers would have been on a place that had some of the buffets, which we constantly look at changing and creating excitement around. But equally, you go to the restaurants in the airport. Constantly new brands coming in. Some of the ways the airport operators today, I think, truly are probably the best in the world, in terms of what they're doing. So, that's where it plays, and that's how we see this opportunity play out as well.
So Vikas, if I come to you, let's talk a few things in terms of numbers. We are talking about travel QSR, we are talking about the lounge business as well. Between the two, when you talk about this business, it's usually labor intensive to some extent. And that's the major expense that you have to think of, taking into consideration the partnerships that you already have in place with airports. Where are you seeing the juice coming in between the two businesses? And where do you think you would be focusing your energies from a business perspective?
So, thanks. As a business, our concentration is on improving our financial metrics, but at the same time ensuring customer delight. Okay, so it's never at the cost of the customer per se. Now, when you look at our unit economics as well as the way we operate is because we operate a large real estate, we get economies of scale in the back of the house. Our kitchens are common, both for the travel QSR and the lounge spaces. We have stores, central commissaries at the airports, which allow us to cater to any customer demand at any given point of time. Means something as simple as a delayed flight. The demand for food, the water being there is something which is not known to anybody who would not be operating in this space. But we know that the moment a flight delay has happened, you are suddenly going to see a 6x demand at your unit. So how do you capture that demand? How do you ensure customer satisfaction? Because it's a very touch and feel business. If you look from that angle, it's the emotional part of the business. You don't have water at an airport, it suddenly raises all kinds of decibels within the ecosystem. So that's what we tend to focus on. We always ensure that whenever we are bringing in new brands or new concepts into the lounge, that is what the customer enjoys, and that's what gives us the stickiness in our business from that perspective.
Okay, so what percentage of the revenues will keep coming in from travel QSR and how much will come in from lounge? And will that help you maintain your margins? Because there was a point in time where margins have actually improved from 29% to a 32% in FY25, right? And we've also seen that TFS deliver a 35% in FY23. So what will take you back to that 35%?
So our margins tend to be a range-bound margins predominantly, because what happens is as you bring in new units as well as this, there is a time when they kind of start purring at the same level as the rest of the business. So yes, your margins move within the range-bound, but that's what we have now built as a science within the business in terms of ensuring that yes, how do we go about hitting those thresholds? And I believe going forward also we should be able to replicate our past historical performance from that perspective.
Okay,
Clearly.
and is it seasonality as a factor that comes in? Because now is the time where, when you're an unlisted company, you're talking about all of this from a yearly perspective, right? Now a seasonality factor will come in where retailers will want to know as to what's happening on a quarterly basis. And if the expectations are set right, then there is no surprise that comes in. So how do you factor in that aspect in terms of business?
So there is a bit of seasonality in our business, but the seasonality is something which can be normalized when you look at it on an annualized basis, in the sense because there are certain periods wherein people would be going back to home during the festive seasons. There are times when there are vacations. Now with so many avenues in terms of business travelers traveling, so there is a broad normalization which does tend to happen, but there is a small factor of seasonality which tends to happen also at the same time.
Got it.
Interesting. What are your expansion plans with respect to where your domestic and international expansion plans are? Just want to get a sense of breakup right now as to how much of your revenue comes from domestic and how much comes from international. And do you think that margins in the international business are better than that of domestic business?
Right. So in terms of our focus from a growth point of view, we see no doubt the story for us, I think in the near future will continue to be India as a story, and it will continue to be the Indian aviation, because just in terms of the industry growth expected at 20%, I think it's up to us to be able to cater to that. Itself that takes the effort. So the industry is growing great, and at the same time, we're focused on gaining market share at all points in time. That would be. So I think a combination of like-for-like sales growth is there, just our existing contracts, as more consumers, more passengers are traveling, but also new markets. So you're entering a new airport, a new terminal, creating new outlets. That's very much part of the journey. But in addition to that, the international piece, you mentioned, there's a lot of opportunity there as well. We've gone recently to Malaysia and Hong Kong over the last few years. It's been a very positive journey for us. So therefore, we look at the APAC and the Middle East as markets. So APAC, a small example. APAC is currently a 1.5 billion market for lounges. We see that, for example, expected to be about a 3.6 billion market in the next 10 years, a 12% CAGR there itself as well. So APAC and Middle East as well are markets we see as an immediate primary focus for the lounge opportunity to grow globally. And in addition to that, we have SSP, who are strategic partners in the business. We're leveraging those relationships. They're present globally. Those type of areas we believe put wings under the opportunity of the international as well. So we've been successful in these two, but much more we believe in a growth opportunity as well there.
Okay. And where does your net debt stand right now? Because right now the IPO proceeds will be completely offered for sale. So where does that stand, and what are the plans with respect to debt reduction?
So we as a company are cash positive. We are having more than 600 crores of cash in our books. So obviously we are a zero debt company. Our business is such that because of a negative working capital cycle, we generate enough cash from our EBITDA levels as such, and that's what will continue to trade forward. So we have enough cash on the books to take care of our expansion plans as well as any other opportunity that comes.
So that will be through internal accruals?
Accruals as such.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other one I want to ask you is in terms of valuations. I know you will not be the right person to tell me whether the valuation is fair or not, but a conversation with a lot of brokers and investors tell us that the best way they are pegging a TFS right now in terms of peers is listed QSRs, okay? Now, if I have to look at that aspect, TFS is trading at a discount in terms of QSRs. Would that be a right way to look at a TFS?
So I think from a peer set, part of the journey is, so while we run our business and that's what we do, I think, yes, the understanding we've got probably is that most similar nature of business would be the QSRs. But yes, different drivers behind it, because yes, we do have the drivers of passenger growth. We do have this story of aviation growth in India being wings, as you can say, the wind beneath our wings, in terms of growth opportunities. So I think no doubt, I think from a nature of business, very similar, but there are structural benefits that are there in our business. And I would be right to probably comment on the valuation. We've been through an exercise, we had great bankers, talking with anchors and getting that right sense. But I do believe, the idea is we're in a business, we see a lot of opportunity in that business, and we're focused on delivering in that business.
Yeah, I think I think a listed peer is a SSP Asia Pacific Holdings, I think. And that's where it's taking a discount as well, because people are looking at the margin profile, investors are looking at the valuation, and people are talking about the return ratios, right? Where if compared the aspect that we've got from brokerages also, that yes, there is strength here, because the clear play with an IPO becomes whether are you looking at listing day gains or are you investing in a company from a longer term perspective. Very lastly, with all of this said and done, now that you're into the business, which is the QSR that you would vouch for, that all the viewers should go to, which is the best one?
All your questions now are I appreciate a great session. This is the most difficult one. So as you love all your kids equally and very much same. But I would say when you go there,
your personal favorite.
My personal favorite. So I love a bit heavier food. So you'd always see me at a Delhi street. But sometimes in the morning you see me at idli.com, which is one of my favorites, having a nice dosa over there. But I think it depends. But all kids are favorites. So do try all our brands when you travel to airports every single time.
And Vikas, for you, which one would you prefer? I'm sure it's not going to be the same one.
No. So for me, it's more of an idli.com at times, but I equally love KFC at any given point of time.
And if you have to replicate, a lounge which is not here, which is not operated by you, some other peer who maybe globally must be looking at, which lounge would you ask a traveler to go visit?
Outside of our network?
Yes, outside of your network.
Wow. So I think in terms of lounges, you have some beautiful lounges globally, but there are, I truly believe And we should say so. I do believe we operate both from a point of view, some of the best lounges, and from a hospitality point of view, I think the Indian culture does deliver the experience not only from a build-out, but actually service point of view. I think you have some beautiful lounges. I think India's well ahead of the journey. So whatever I'm telling you is probably after India in terms of the offering. But you see some beautiful lounges. You've seen something happen recently in the UK with the Virgin Club Lounge. You know, that's a lounge which is a nice place to go. Got experience. I still believe, our country is well ahead, so I'm always believe fly the Indian flag
I'm
high.
catching at this point, but it's just a lot of times smaller cities, but there is that one experience that you think, okay, this is something I would replicate in my business as well.
Sure.
It's like that.
It's very true, and it's about food is the key thing as well. You get the space right, which many times there, but I think the food is what many times gets missed. I think that's a key integral part of the lounge, because ultimately you're going in there, you want tasty food as well. So that's
I think all of us are hungry. It's 12:50 and it's lunch hour for all of us as well. But thank you so much, Vikas. Thank you, Varun, as well, for coming to the studio, speaking to us. And we will look forward to speak to you on Monday when TFS lists as well. So that's the management of TFS joining us in the studio.